shattered to unbreakable. Listen here, sweet sister. Whether you think you have one little crack or you are shattered into a billion pieces, this podcast is going to give you the resources, tools, and skills to help piece yourself back together to form a beautiful, unique, solid, and unbreakable masterpiece. You are listening to Shattered to Unbreakable, the Reclaim podcast. Let's talk. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Shattered to Unbreakable. I'm your host, Brandi Babin, and I am excited to share with you the 3 lists that saved my life. And if you know me, you know I love lists and checklists. And if you're this kind of person that likes to just write things down and check them off, then you're going to love this episode. If you hate lists, might just be one you listen to but don't actually try. So today, I'm obsessed with lists. The Reclaim Guidebook has tons of lists in it. So beware if you get one of those. It guides you through creating goals that align with your habits and your lifestyle and your purpose and your meaning. So in order to understand yourself and go through this self-discovery process, lists are a little bit necessary because you got to figure out who you are and why you tick and what your talents are. So it's a process. And so the 3 lists I'm going to go through today are the lists that made the biggest impact in my life. So the first list I'm going to dive into is a financial frustration list. This is brain dumping everything that frustrates you about money. And when I say brain dump, I mean get a piece of paper or get on your phone notes or even get on your computer. I don't know if some of you type faster than you write. I'm one of those. I get on my computer and just start typing away on an Excel spreadsheet or a document, Word document, even notes on your computer. You can just start brain dumping. Just write everything down that you're thinking of. And so when it comes to my money list, the frustrations about money, I want to jot down everything that frustrates me about money. I mean, everything, like no rules on this list. Every single thing that frustrates you. I mean, it could be like silly things like, well, I don't have any. That's frustrating, or it could be, I'm frustrated with how people in my family spend money. I'm frustrated with how my parents didn't teach me about money. I'm frustrated that I can't buy my daughter dance lessons. I'm frustrated that XYZ, you just keep going, right? I wish I could spend more. I wish we could go on more vacations. I wish I could save for a house. I'm frustrated at the fact that I can't go get my nails done every 3 weeks, frustrated that you just on and on and on and on and on. Once you have your list written down, you take the list and you start categorizing these things. And this is where it gets really fun because you realize you actually do have enough money for most of the things that you want to do. You're just prioritizing your life differently. So once you see that and see how doable these goals are, it becomes very exciting. You really can attain most of the things that you want out of life financially. And so when you go back through your list, the first thing I always do is cross off anything I cannot control. Like if one of your frustration is the economy, the state of the economy. Unless you're one of the big wigs or a bank, you really can't control the state of the economy. So you can cross that out because it's not something you can control. What you can control is if you get Starbucks every day, right? So do you see the difference? So if you're saying, I wish my daughter could be in dance lessons. This is one of my things on my list. I wish I could pay for my daughter's dance lessons. And so that was only $40 a month. And I couldn't seem to scrape around $40 a month. And when I wrote that down, okay, $40 a month, it started making me realize oh, that's really not that much. If I just XYZ, stop going to Starbucks, cancel the Netflix subscription, those kinds of things, go through your subscriptions. You can find a lot of money hiding there. Things you're not using, you didn't know you were oh my gosh, it's insane the amount of subscriptions we get tied to. So go through and see what is going to cost to get each of these done. And then there's the bigger ones, I want to save for a house. Well, I need this much down, and you start formulating a plan. And my favorite thing to do that made more sense to me was to break it up into what can I take care of this week? What can I take care of this month? What can I take care of this quarter? Next 6 months, year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So I broke all of these up and I did it on my phone. So I used emojis. Anything that I really could afford to take care of this next week, I put like a little flower emoji by it. And then anything I could afford to take care of in the next month, I put a sunshine. You know what I mean? So, and then I could see, okay, I can afford a lot of these things if I just prioritize them differently. And what's really cool is then when your like taxes, like your tax refund comes around, you're not just like, oh, let's go to Vegas. I don't know. Does anybody really do that? Or, let's spend it on this or that. You have a plan in place and you're like, you know what? This is an extra, 2, 3, 4 grand. We could knock 3 of these things off our list that's frustrating us about money. And so it just gives a whole new perspective to what really can I do financially. Like, this is so cool. And I loved that list. I got through everything but 2 things on my list within the year. And I was like, holy smokes. So it's really magical what happens when you just get it all on paper. Because if you don't, it's just rolling over in your mind, rolling over in your mind, rolling over in your mind. Man, I wish I could get in and dance, but we just can't afford it. Sure wish I could get some, I sure wish I could, but I just can't right now. And you're just like waiting for this extra money, but you don't have a plan in place. And so that made a huge difference for me financially. I still do that because it's really cool what I can accomplish if I just have it on paper. So that's list number 1. And I actually have a whole tutorial on that goes into depth a little bit more on the website. So if you go to the reclaimstrategy.com, there is, if you scroll down, there's Reclaim You, which is Reclaim University. If you click into that, there's a whole financial course. It's like a 5-day course, and it's not like the whole 5 days. It's like, 10-minute increments, but it helps to break it up. Or you could listen to all of it in one shebang, but it lists or it walks you through that exercise a lot more in depth and then shows you what to do with it. I also have worksheets that go with it and budget trackers, expense trackers, like all kinds of fun stuff on that course, and it's free. So you should definitely go check it out. The reclaimstrategy.com and then Reclaim You or Reclaim University. Go check that out. So if you're interested in money and budgeting and getting all that taken care of, it's a really great resource. So that was the number 1 thing that was always a burden on me, is the finances. The second list that changed my life was the whole idea behind Tears Tell a Story. So my experience with one of my counselors, I started crying at a weird time. I don't know why I started crying at that point. And he was like, aha. I was like, what? He's like, there it is. There's a wound there that you need to meditate on. You need to reflect on that. And I'm like, oh. And it really made me think, because he was saying, tears come out during pivotal moments. Like, you need to pay attention when you start crying, whether it's sadness, happiness, frustration and anger, loneliness. Something's going on when a tear comes out. It's your cue to start investigating that emotion and where did it come from and why do you have it? And usually it's something that clues you into your deeper meaning and purpose in life. So I took that to heart. And every time I cried, I would be like, okay, what is this? Where's it coming from? What's it supposed to be used for? Because I love the fact that you can use pain and suffering for something absolutely beautiful. Reclaim is a huge example of that. It never would have come about if I wasn't challenged to become more confident and solid in who I am. I was broken down to complete worthlessness in my own mind, and it was at the hands of somebody else. And so I never would have reached that rock bottom point to have somewhere to rise up to and to create Reclaim for everybody dealing with those same things if I wasn't knocked down. You know what I mean? And so pain, like charities, I know I've said this before. If you're a religious podcast listener, I'm repeating myself, but for all of you who are new, I always say that, charities have come out of some sort of tragic experience or emotion, and they do so much good. And so, not that we want bad things to happen, but I'm just saying we have tools to fix these things in the future for others using our pain to serve a purpose. And so when you look at what makes you cry, this was my second list I wanted to talk about, is write down everything that makes you cry. And you can use it to see what's made you cry in the past. Or my favorite is to say, okay, in the last year or last 6 months or even last 2 years, what has made me cry? What are the times I remember crying? And so you could figure that out. Okay, that time I was exhausted. I felt overwhelmed, underappreciated. I was just like, enough already. Like that was the time that I cried. And then there was a time where I was watching a show and a little kid was being abused emotionally and he had no voice, no advocate. And that made me cry. Okay. And then, you know what I mean? Go through all the things that make you cry. Once you have them all listed, you can go back and say, okay, if I could choose, 2 or 3 of these things that hit me as extremely important, like if I could change one of these things based on my own actions, I would. Which one of those things would you pick? This is important to start uncovering your purpose and your meaning in this life. And so one of the things, for example, for me, I start bawling anytime somebody is validated. So it's these breakthrough moments. Like if a family has been struggling and then all of a sudden they're gifted a new house, like Extreme Home Makeover, waterworks for me. If somebody, if somebody's been striving for this accomplishment and, they've just been working so hard and they've gotten knocked down a few times and they finally get that accomplishment, or they finally win the big championship, or they finally get what they've been trying so hard for, I start bawling. And so validation of people's efforts is what makes me cry. And so that's a big part of why I do Reclaim, is because I know there are lots of moms out there that don't feel appreciated and don't feel validated, and they feel exhausted and overwhelmed. And I want to validate the fact that their feelings matter, that they need boundaries to protect themselves, that they are worthy, and that they deserve to have self-care and self-love and self-worth. Like, this is something that is so needed, and I want to make it normalized. I want to validate their need for being loved, appreciated, and cherished. And so that's a big part of why I do Reclaim, is because I did this list and I was like, okay, what makes me cry more than anything else is validating a mom or attending to a child in need. And validating a mother and making a mother so strong in herself that she feels comfortable setting and enforcing boundaries and regulating her own emotions and loving herself in the mirror and taking care of herself in all areas of life, it will create a safe place for all of our children in the next generation and more to come. And so, I found my meaning and purpose through this list of what makes me cry. So I challenge you guys to try that one. That's a really good one. My last list I wanted to talk about is the list that you make when you are at your happiest in life. So when you think back, when in life did I feel most fulfilled, most important, most valued, most happy, most joyful, most, just all the mosts? What part or time in my life did I feel that way? Once you have that, then you start making your list. Who was I hanging out with? What kind of people? What was I listening to, music-wise? What was I watching on TV? What kind of job did I have? Did I exercise? What was I eating? What were my hobbies? What was my day like? When did I get up? When did I go to sleep? How much of my social life did I have? Did I hang out with friends a lot? Did I not? Did I see family a lot? Was I dating somebody? What were they like? So everything you can think of about the time when you were happiest, And then you can write down the difference between then and now. And some of those things you can't control, like you have kids now. That's very different, and it's not something you can just get rid of. That sounds bad. But what you can do is, if you had a bigger social life before kids and now you don't, you can tell your partner or whatever, say, hey, I need a girls' day, or I need some time alone, or I need some time with my friends, or whatever. You can start setting those boundaries or requests for your needs to help you reach that level of happiness again. I do want to be careful in talking about this happiness, because it doesn't mean it's void of suffering. I don't want you to think it's like this time in my life when nothing went wrong. If you think about it, sometimes the happiest you were in life, something might have been going wrong. You might have lost a grandparent. You might have been going through a breakup, or you might have realized the happy part of your life was right after you had a breakup, or you know what I mean? There's so many different facets to this. But I don't want you to think of that as void of suffering or void of pain or void of conflict, because part of what makes life so great is the contrast between the suffering and the happiness. And I know I've talked about that in a couple episodes ago, but I want to stress the fact that we're made to believe that we're supposed to be happy all the time, and that's totally not true. And so I want you to realize that this happiness is going to be fleeting sometimes. And then you're going to have moments of suffering or hardship or overwhelm or anxiety or just worry. And it's okay to have those times. You just want to find a way to regulate those emotions, find a way to sit through them. We just did an episode last week about tapping. So go back and listen to that. That's a great tool for sitting through and processing your emotions. If you've got a history of emotions that are still locked up, you can do brain spotting or EMDR or therapy. I've got great resources for that. I am a brain spotter, but I'm completely booked, so I have zero time to take on any new clients for brain spotting. But I have great resources for those that can. My therapist being one of them. She is fabulous. Her name's Rachel Hayes. I love her. She's amazing. So she could definitely help you out with past traumas that you need to work through. Other ways of regulating emotions are just meditating, giving yourself times in silence and prayer, going to church without anyone there. Like, I guess I should clarify, go to church when there's not something going on and just sit in the pew. That's a powerful experience. What are some other ways I regulate my emotions? Journaling, definitely. One of my most favorite ways, which I talked about in the first podcast of season 3, was the Solomon's paradox that Alex Hormozi talks about. I call it the Queen's chair, Queen Batilda's chair. And so it's basically a conversation you have with yourself being 85 years old and has already accomplished everything you've ever dreamed of accomplishing. And so you're having a conversation with your own self. I've really enjoyed that for sitting in my emotions, and I've been able to work through some really big stuff that I really haven't found any other way to work through. So that's been really cool. And so if you want to learn more about that, go to episode 1 of season 3. It's really cool. I love it. So those are just a few ways to regulate your emotions or go through or sit through your emotions. All of them are amazing. Going outside and walking barefoot on the grass when it's not wintertime. I cannot wait for summer. Those of you who live in Colorado with me, I am so over living in the state. I love the summer and the spring and the fall, but winter, I'm getting older. My skin's getting drier. I can't stand the cold. I'm skinny, if you know me, I'm like the tiniest little person, and I'm starting to get like what is it called? Raynaud's syndrome, where when I'm cold, my fingers just fall asleep in certain areas and turn white. It's so weird. It's like not like the whole finger. It's just like little spots, and I can't feel my fingers anymore. And it's because of being cold. So I'm like this close to saying it's detrimental to my health to live here anymore, and I have to move. I have no choice. But anyway, where was I? Oh yes, regulating emotions. Okay. So yeah, those are my 3 lists that really made a difference in my life. I hope that you can at least just try even one of them and let me know what you think. There's always a little question at the end of these podcasts in the show notes. I think it's on Spotify. I'm not sure if it's everywhere else, but go and give me your opinion. Which list made the biggest difference for you? So the financial frustration brain dump, the tears tell a story brain dump, and then the when I was most happy brain dump. Those are my 3 lists. So go try them out. I do want to ask you, go and rate the podcast wherever you're listening on whatever platform. Can you go and rate it, hopefully 5 stars, but that will help us reach more people. So just take a quick moment and do that for me real quick. And then I will see you next time. Stay sparkly, sweet sisters. Thanks for listening, you guys. I wanted to let you know our website has changed. Our new website is called thereclaimstrategy.com. I think it is so fitting. We also have a whole university full of free courses and downloads. So please go check that out. It's called the Reclaim University, or Reclaim You. I thought of it all by myself. So proud. And so hop on there and download some resources. Also, I would love for you to share this podcast. The more women we can get in front of, the more women we can save, and the more children we can affect. I love you guys. Stay sparkly. I'll see you next week.